Welcome to YORI 350, lesson number 2. I'm Scott Conway, PhD, JD. We're talking about the vow deal. And today in particular is going to be a quick overview of the deal as it exists given our vow list. Our vow list is love, honor, cherish, pretty fundamental. Obey is on the list. We're going to unpack that just a tiny bit today, but that's going to be a fairly significant unpack as we get into that. Have and hold, better or worse, richer or poorer, sickness and health, forsaking, cleaving, and for life. And as we go through the next half dozen lessons, we're going to unpack these in substantial detail. So that in particular, if I'm doing your wedding, you know what I mean by the vows, and you know when I'm doing the marital lesson prior to the vows, this is what I teach on. Now we're going to unpack it in a bit more detail than what I teach at a wedding, but this is going to lay out in a very simple, straightforward way a quick overview, quickly touching on what we mean by the vows. So for those of you who are coming here from lesson 2, of course we're obviously continuing. For those of you who are just coming straight here, this is the overview. And for those who are following in sequence, this is the lesson I would send people to prior to meeting with me for pre-marriage counseling. It's just so that you understand why it is I'm talking about these things the way I'm talking about them and going over them so quickly. So our vow list again is to love, honor, cherish, to obey, to have and hold, better or worse, richer or poorer, sickness and in health, forsaking, cleaving, and for life. Let's look at each one quickly in terms of the deal involved, and then look at deal as a concept and some of how that applies. Because when I do a wedding, the vows are a deal. They're an agreement. Each side is promising this is the deal. This is part of the deal. Now the deal may be much more expansive, but when I say I will love, I will honor, I will cherish, I'm saying I will love, I will honor, I will cherish. This is a binding agreement. When I say love, honor, obey, that is a binding agreement. When I say have, hold, that is a binding agreement, and so on down the list. And so when we're making an actual deal, just like when you're signing a contract, you are agreeing to those terms. Some people, when they're at a wedding and they're getting married, they just treat the words as pretty ceremonial words that are just sort of a relatively meaningless but ceremonial path to get from man and woman to husband and wife. And they're just uttering words that might be pretty, but they don't really mean it as an agreement in order to follow the formality. And that's really all they're doing with it. But the way I come at it is vows are vows. You're making a deal. You're engaging in a contract. You're making a covenant. Whatever wording works for you, it is a series of reciprocal promises. So love, honor, cherish. The love deal. The love deal begins with agape. I will show up with agape, truly unconditional love for you. And in the course of this program, we are not going to deeply unpack agape love because I literally have a program with 24 lessons in it, 24 hours of training unpacking agape in detail. What it is, what it isn't, and where and how it applies. And because that is such a big lesson, of course, I'm not really going to have much of a chance to unpack it in a program where this entire program dealing with all of the vows is shorter than just the one on truly unconditional love. Then there's phileo love, relationship love. So agape is I promise to show up with you with a loving character. Phileo love is relationship love. This is the love you build by relationship. When you promise to love, when you promise particularly to phileo love, you promise that I will engage in the positive behaviors, 4-to-1 just to keep it even, 5-to-1 to make it better. I will engage in the behaviors to build our relationship love. I will engage in the behaviors to contribute to the relationship. And then eros. Now, when you're talking about the Greek term eros or eros, you're generally talking about a sexual love, but sex issues are covered in the having part of the deal. So therefore, we use a different, more expansive definition of eros, of experiential love. And so when you do the vows before me as your officiant, you are vowing to create experiences with one another that will contribute to this shared experience love, to make memories, to create high points together. And so the love deal is agape, phileo, eros. It's a love stack. Agape is the foundation of the pyramid. Phileo is the next level up. And then eros is the capstone. That's the fun part. And phileo and eros are covered in a program that is just as long as this program. So, of course, I'm not going to be deeply unpacking phileo and eros because the program that deals with those, just that aspect, is as long as this program. When you put those two together, combined with his bonus lessons, you've got 35 hours of training just on love. So you can guess how important I believe this is. If it is so important to me to unpack it in that level of detail, then at least I think it's important. And in particular, for me, and especially from me, the way I love, the way I agape, the way I phileo, the way I eros, my own program on that is my standard to which I am willing to be held. So if I am engaged in a relationship where love is the deal, if I get married where love is the deal, anyone can go to that entire program, the combination of them, and hold me accountable for anything and everything I teach in them. That's how important love is to me. It's not just a feeling. It's a deal. I promise to show up with an agape character. That's part of the deal. If you don't trust that I'm going to show up with an agape character, you shouldn't be getting married to me. I promise to show up with a phileo deal and an eros deal. And if you don't trust me to show up with a phileo deal and an eros deal, you shouldn't be marrying me. Now, whether there's that magnitude of trust between an engaged couple as they walk toward their own altar, that's up to them. That's their judgment call to make. So it's up to you, and it's your judgment call to make. That's the love deal. Then we have the honor deal. The honor deal is I will lift you up. The honor deal includes I will reflect well on you. So part of the honor deal, if I am pledging to honor you, I am saying that my presence in your life will lift you up, not tear you down. The way I interact with you privately will lift you up, not tear you down. The way I talk about you in public will lift you up, and particularly lift you up based on the reality and truth as a reflection of how I treat you privately. And what makes that one so important is if I mistreat you privately and I lift you up publicly, what am I really doing? Probably I'm trying to make myself look like a good husband. But then if I go home behind closed doors and I don't treat you the way I treat you in public, I'm not being a good husband. I am trying to seem like a good husband. And so these are some of the things to watch out for. So if you have any concerns as to whether I am a lifter up or a tearer down, you have to look at this. Is this a deal I'm actually making? And it's whether it's a deal I make with someone else that I'm going to offer them honor, or whether it's something that they are offering to me. Do I trust them to consistently honor me? And I will reflect well on you. Now that one is mostly the public one. That if people find out that you're married to me, would that reflect well on you or reflect poorly on you? If people find out how I really treat you, would that reflect well on you or would that reflect poorly on you? If people find out what my real world standards are, and the biggest way you can tell someone's real world standards is what makes them angry. If people find out what standards I expect of you, would having married those expectations reflect well on you or reflect poorly on you? So a big part of honor, I will lift you up in reality, in totality, publicly and privately. I will reflect well on you is mostly public because it has to do with reputation, it has to do with image, it has to do with how it looks, but it also draws on whatever private things could get to be publicly known. That's the honor deal. So we have the love deal and the honor deal. Then there's the cherish deal. Now in particular, when I do a wedding, typically I'll have the husband promises to love, honor, and cherish. The wife will promise to love, honor, and obey. So cherish is much more typically a masculine imperative. That it becomes his job, his obligation, his agreement, his promise to cherish her. The cherish deal is I will treasure you. I will treasure you. You will be my treasure. You will be my gift. That I am going to look at what is most valuable about you. Where there are problems, of course, we'll try to solve the problems. Where there are gaps, together as a couple, we'll try to fill in the gaps. But I will focus quite intentionally my attention on your value. When it comes to things like beauty, I'm not going to look at the least beautiful things about you. I'm going to look at the most beautiful things about you. I'm going to guide myself to be enraptured by your eyes, your smile right after you've had a good laugh. I'm going to look for things like the lines of your silhouette in the morning as you get up out of bed. I'm going to specifically go out of my way to pay attention to the things that I treasure about you. And let it be known how precious you are to me. That I will dive into your heart and your mind and let you know what a gift you are to me. The cherish deal includes I will treat you as important. The cherish deal, I will treat you as important, as an individual, as a whole person. I won't treat you as an assistant to me. I won't treat you as an accessory in my life. I won't treat you like you're an employee. I won't treat you like you're just a housekeeper, a governess for our kids. I'm not going to treat you like you're a servant that does the shopping and you're the cook. I'll treat you like a whole human being. I'll treat you as though your thoughts are just as important as my thoughts. Your opinions are just as important as my opinions. Your feelings are just as important as my feelings. And if you and I have a difference of perspective, I will treat that just as importantly as I expect you to treat me when I'm the one with a difference of opinion from you. And in particular, as the man who promises to cherish her, this is going to cycle back through her promise to obey. Because part of cherishing her, treating her as a treasure, treating her as important, is she should be worth giving yourself to, giving yourself for, sacrificing for, because if something is valuable to you, what do you do for that which is valuable to you? If you pull $20 an hour after taxes and all the withdrawals for your work. And this thing that you want costs $2,000. What will you do? You will sacrifice 100 hours of your time and effort and your work to generate that $2,000 to get that thing. Because that thing has $2,000 of value to you. And you give yourself to the labor, you give yourself to the time, you give yourself to the effort it takes to earn the money to get the thing that is of value to you. And so when a man's going to cherish his wife, he should treat her as important. What sacrifice do I make? What investment do I make to show my wife how important she is? What investment do I make? What studies do I do? What personal development do I do to show my wife how important it is to me to be a good husband? How important it is to me that we have a good marriage? How important is it to me that we still date, that we have a romance, that we have this relationship? That she is important. She's worth wooing. She's worth the investment. Just like she was worth the investment to me when we first met and we were dating and I'm trying to win her heart. What if I didn't have her and I'm trying to get her? What if she wasn't already mine and I'm one of any number of men that she could choose? How would I show up in her life as her best choice? And because if I'm her husband, presumably, I'm the man who knows her best. I'm the man who, theoretically anyway, has the easiest access to her heart and her mind because I live with her. I have the most time with her. And if I make use of that opportunity to dive into her heart and her mind, nobody else can compete with that. So long as I've created enough emotional safety for her to be open with me, no one has the opportunity to keep her heart and keep her mind like I do. So that's part of the cherish deal. Then the obey deal. So gentlemen, I have to warn you, the obey deal should be terrifying to the man. Because if she's promising to obey, this is the woman's offer. The woman's offer is, I trust your leadership. I am trusting your leadership. When I promise to obey, I'm saying, I am trusting you will be leading well enough that you will be worthy of obedience. I am trusting, and we're going to get into this about the primary job of the submitted is to constantly be evaluating the leadership of the leader to determine whether or not obedience is wise. And that part of the job of the submitted, part of the job of the obedient is to make sure that obedience is a good thing. And that they're not going to be put in a position where they're going to have to delay obedience or just disobey, or belay or countermand, or remove a leader from leadership, temporarily or permanently, in part or in whole. And we're going to unpack that in much more detail when we get there. But it is part of the job of the submitted, part of the job of the obedient, to be evaluating the leadership. Now, we have no more powerful a chain of command than in military service. And when a senior officer gives an order and the followers determines like that is an illegal order, they have to make a determination. Do you obey an illegal order? So what if you have a commander he's losing it, and he just wants you to nuke the town and go, okay, sir, we are not nuking the town. So even in that powerful a chain of command, there is a level at which those under command refuse to obey orders, or will obey the orders of someone other than the commander. If the commander is losing it, they might follow someone underneath the commander who's not losing it. So for the obey deal, the wife is saying, I trust your leadership. And I am going to trust your leadership that you will not abuse it. that you will use it wisely and well, so that you will give me rest under your authority. Because the average woman's life, the middle of the bell curve life, 80% of women, maybe more, their brains are on all the time. And they need a place where it is safe to drop their guard and not have to think. And that safe place to just be obedient should be with her husband. Thus, here's the scary part, gentlemen. If you accept the vow to obey you, you are saying, I accept this responsibility. I accept this responsibility. I take it as a serious responsibility, not as a selfish power. That when I accept her obedience as a pledge, I am promising I will never wield this selfishly. I will never wield this emotionally. I will never wield this in my own individual self-interest. I will only wield this in your interests and our joint interests and the family's interests. And I will not betray your trust by trying to assert this power in a way that really you ought to disobey, or at least delay obedience. I will not assert this authority in any kind of way where you ought to belay or countermand. I will not assert this authority in any way that would give you cause to need to remove me from command temporarily or permanently. I will never assert this authority in a way that will cause you to have to remove me from command in whole or even in part. So for any gentleman on his way to the altar that I'm doing a wedding for, her pledge to obey should weigh heavily on your shoulders. And for the ladies, can you trust his acceptance of that responsibility? Because if he cannot be trusted with that responsibility, you will not have your husband as your rest. You will have your husband much more as a taskmaster if he asserts this authority in an irresponsible and or selfish or emotional way. So the obey deal is pretty weighty and not one to be taken lightly, and certainly not one any man should be excited about, because there's a responsibility there. The have deal and the hold deal. I'm going to kind of talk about these kind of collectively. The have deal is the sexual and sex relationship. Now, when it comes to the sexual relationship and the sex relationship, you notice I have two separate categories there. And then we have the hold deal. The hold deal is the affection relationship. So that's the affection, that's the romance. So affection, sexual, and sex is wrapped up in the have and the hold. And there's a bundle here. Because sometimes some people want to just have like one part of the deal but without offering the other part of the deal. They want to have the sex but they don't want to have to do the affection. Or they want the affection but they don't want to have to do the sex. This is kind of a bundled deal here. These tend to go together. So the have deal and the hold deal as a bundle have to do largely with the physical relationship and the romance and affection surrounding the physical relationship. So when you promise to have and to hold, you're basically promising it a romantic sexual relationship. The sex and sexual relationship, why those are put separately, is when I talk about sex as opposed to sexual, I mean like intercourse, like penis and vagina intercourse. When I talk about sexual, that's all the other kind of sex stuff that isn't intercourse. Basically, you think of every sex act you can perform that doesn't involve penetration and it could not result in pregnancy. That's going to be in the sexual category. And then the whole deal is the affection and the romance category. So if you were in a moral position where you can't have sex yet, but you could go close, well then you would have the affection and the sexual, but without the sex. If you were to have a romantic relationship with nominal physical involvement, hugging, kissing, cuddling, snuggling, hand-holding, that level of affection, and that was as far as it went, that'd be the affection romance relationship. Well, when you do the have deal and the hold deal, you're saying that we're not switching to have from hold, we're expanding into have and keeping the hold. It is an expansion, not a change. Sometimes we see this where it goes from, we have a romantic, dating, affectionate relationship because that's as close as I can get to sex right now. But then once I know I've got access to sex, then I give up on the other stuff and I just want to have sex. Or when I'm trying to seduce her, I'm trying to get her to want things. I might do all these other things to get her hot and bothered enough that maybe she says yes when she might want to say no, or at least she becomes open to a yes. But if I know I've got a yes, I skip all that stuff. And what that tells you then, for like myself, if I'm the one doing it, and for someone else, if you see someone else doing it, is all that other stuff wasn't about love. All that other stuff wasn't about relationship. All that other stuff was just the gates the person felt they had to walk through to get the thing that they wanted. If they can get the thing that they wanted, they're not walking that path anymore. Why do I have to walk that path? So the pledge to have and hold says all the romance and affection that we've had, we're going to keep all of that. That's the hold deal. Whatever level of physical intimacy we've been having, that's going to just expand. That's the have deal. And it also means that so long as we're married, the have and hold deal means that the answer to sex is yes. On some kind of a reasonable basis, which might be 2 to 4 times a week, once a week, whatever is reasonably fulfilling to both members of a couple. Not just what one wants and one doesn't. That's often the way it ends up, but that's not the pledge here. The pledge isn't, well, we'll have whenever both of us want to, and they'll hold when both of us want to. But if I don't feel like it, I'm not going to do it. Because I don't think it's important. I'm not actually making the promise. What I'm actually promising is to have and hold whensoever I should feel like it. To have and to hold whenever it'll get me what I want. That's not the deal. The have deal is you are pledging a sexual and sex relationship. The hold deal is you are pledging an affectionate, romantic relationship. And of course, you can imagine we're going to dive into this a lot more. But the have and the hold deal is covered in a lot more detail in its own program, literally on Awesome Sex. Awesome Sex being awesome because it's grounded in the love of affection and romance, and involves all the sexual and the intentional seeking out of mutual pleasure. It's not something one should just be sacrificing for the other. It should be seeking to please one another, to pleasure one another. It's not something I just consistently take from my wife, or something my wife consistently just takes from me. It's something that has an interplay to it. And it's not just as simple as, well, I give her dates, she gives me sex. It's not that transactional. It's all the way through. I'm seeking to pleasure her heart, her mind, her body. She's seeking to pleasure me, my heart, my mind, my body. And it may not be that all-encompassing, intimate loving every single time, but it's regularly enough, consistently enough that we would consider it a regular sex life. And then we have the pledge of better or worse, the pledge of richer or poorer, the pledge of sickness and in health. All of these substantially overlap, and all of these need their own unpacking individually, which of course we'll do. But the better or worse says we will be partners when things are better. and things are worse. We will be partners when things are better and when things are worse. It is not permission to be the worst. It's permission to continue to be partners when things get the worst. When bad things crash against us, because I'm sure all of us have noticed, unless you're very, very young and largely disconnected, that bad things happen sometimes. We go through difficult times. And the better or worse pledge is when either of us goes through difficult times, or when we together go through difficult times, we will be partners, not opponents. I will not take it out on you. I will team up with you against the worst. I will not be the worst. I will be the better. I will be the partner that we can go through the better or worse with. And by the way, the pledge for better or worse is both sides are important. There's a saying that has some statistical validity. It's not universally true, but it has some statistical validity. And it is that in times of struggle, a woman's loyalty is tested. In times of plenty, the man's loyalty is tested. Because if he is very, very successful, and he decides that, well, now that I'm successful, I deserve better than my wife. I deserve more than my wife. I deserve more than what I'm getting at home. Why? Because I'm super successful. Now I should have access. I should wind women in song. I should be able to expand my sexual experiences. I should be able to expand past her and see if maybe even leaving her behind in exchange for something better. Because I deserve something better. And so the better or worse means even if things get better, that we might be great partners in times of struggle, but if things get to be opulent, we will still be partners. And sometimes that goes the other way around too. In fact, and it probably has something to do with the particular circles that surround me, where I tend to see this in the other direction, probably just as often as I see it in what's considered the traditional direction, where I see women who become very, very successful, and then they think they have options. That their success is their way to leave their husband. So better or worse is both sides. You're pledging both sides. That when things are hard, we will be partners. Things of the world might come crashing against us, but we will be side by side, hand in hand. I'll have your back. I'll fight alongside you. I will blaze this trail. We will be partners. We are on the same team. I will not treat you like we're not on the same team. Richer or poorer, very similar. We will be partners when we are richer or we are poorer. And that goes both ways too. Because a lot of times great wealth creates great opportunities. And some of those opportunities also sometimes aren't so great. The pledge of richer or poorer means even if we're richer, when we might be more used to being poorer, we will be partners. Or even when we're poorer, even if we're normally accustomed to being richer, we will be partners. We will not become opponents. In sickness and in health, we will be partners when we are sick and when we are healthy. But just as better or worse, I don't give myself permission to be the worst. Richer or poorer means I don't give myself permission to impoverish us. I'm not going to gamble away our money. I'm not going to drink away our money. I'm not going to blow the money with stupid, frivolous, irresponsible things. I will be as responsible as is reasonable under the circumstances and the totality of the circumstances to preserve our wealth when we need to, and to enjoy the opulence when we have financial freedom. And in sickness and in health is very similar. I will take care of myself for you, and I will take care of you. Just like you were pledging, you will take care of yourself for me. and you will take care of me. Because sometimes one, the other, or both of us is going to be sick. And we're going to need the other person to be our partner. And one of the tricky parts, of course, is to remember there's a partnership here. And that I don't let my sickness give me permission to break partnership and start to treat you like an opponent. Because the flip side of this, when you think about this, is we are partners when either of us is sick or either of us is healthy. That means I will treat you as a partner when you're the one that's sick and you need me to take care of you. I will treat you as a partner when I'm the one that's sick and you're trying to take care of me. I will treat you when I'm sick the way I hope you'll treat me when you're sick. Because very often when someone's sick, some sick people get very, very demanding. And they start to feel very, very entitled. But then when the other one's sick, they don't want the other one to be demanding and entitled. They want the other one to be understanding, well, I've got other things to do. I have to go to work. But they don't do the reciprocity. Well, this is the pledge here for sickness and health. We will be partners, even when one of us is down. The forsake deal. The forsake deal is a pledge that my partner will be my primary relationship. Not my only relationship, not the only human being on the planet that's important to me, but all things being equal, if I am marrying you and I'm doing the forsake deal, I'm saying I will make you my primary relationship. Now, a lot of people want to take that particularly meaning I won't have sex with other people. That's actually not where this comes from. The forsake and the cleave deal come from a biblical admonition called leave, cleave, be one flesh. Now, because we already talked about have and hold as the sex deal, we're not talking about leave, cleave, be one flesh in sexual terms. We already covered that. That's already in the vows. So leave, cleave, be one flesh goes to some other context. And part of it is that a man will leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So here's the idea here. The forsake is I will leave behind my past. I don't walk into the relationship with my baggage from the past unresolved and undealt with, except by invitation. I will leave my family of origin and make a new family. I will leave my past life to make a new life. I will leave my past relationships to make a new relationships. And what I bring with me, I bring by choice. I decide. I am bringing this with me on purpose into our marriage for us to share. Now, unfortunately, that can include good stuff and bad stuff. But that's the forsake deal. The forsake deal is you will be my primary. You will be my number one, because this is a marriage partnership. That this partnership is primary. Now, there's versions of the forsake deal of keeping a relationship where it is supposed to be. Not diminishing a relationship or elevating a relationship outside of whatever the status is supposed to be. And so that's part of this concept. But the forsake deal means I'm leaving behind my family of origin. I'm leaving behind my old ways. I'm bringing with me that which I choose to bring with me to contribute to our marriage. And sometimes in the forsake deal, that might mean you're leaving behind good stuff. Because if you think about it as, say, furniture, and I've got this great king-size bed that I can bring from home, and you've got a great king-size bed you can bring from home. Well, how many king-size beds are we going to have in our bedroom? Assuming we're going to keep either of the king-size beds, only one. They can't both come with us. So even just because something is good doesn't necessarily mean it needs to show up. If I've got these great gourmet recipes for all these really cool cream sauce things, but I'm marrying someone who is lactose intolerant, guess what? I might be great at fettuccine alfredo, but I'm not making it for my wife. If she's lactose intolerant, that is not going to work for her. And so on and so forth. So the forsake deal means everything that is not contributing to this marriage, everything that I don't willfully choose to bring to this marriage, we will leave out. Which comes to the cleave deal. The cleave deal is there's a my way and there's a your way. And if we're going to make this partnership, even if it's just at a friendship level or a business partnership, whatever it is, there's you and there's me, and we're going to make a we. What is we? What is our way? Now, our way, theoretically, possibly, might be my way, it might be your way. More likely, if we're doing this well, we will find a higher third alternative that draws on both of our ways to create this elevated thing that wouldn't exist but for this partnership. Every once in a while, I see someone, and I've seen it as often be the wife as the husband, so don't think this is a male-female thing, where they walk in and they just want things their way. And they expect the partner to just come alongside and, sometimes be the assistant, be the servant, do what I want you to do it the way I want you to do it. And it might be on different issues. Very commonly in modern society, I see women doing that over child rearing, where the dad gets relegated to assistant to the parent, and that they don't get to do a lot of individual parenting, and they always get second-guessed and undermined in their parenting. I see a lot of that, which is kind of unfortunate. If you have two decent parents, and very often what I also see in there is that the primary relationship isn't primary, that the husband-wife relationship goes after each of the individual parent-child relationships. And so the partnership isn't parenting. A parent is parenting, but the partnership is slowly fading away, or sometimes it's just being blown out of the water. So the cleave deal has to do with we create an our way. And the our way, to the extent our way looks just like my way, I need to take another look at that and say we've got a bunch of our ways that really are kind of the way I want it to be, and they're non-collaborative. Our ways should, by definition, be collaborative, which means our way shouldn't always look like my way. Our way shouldn't always look like your way. Our way should look different than either of our individual ways, because that's how we're collaborating, that's how we're synergizing, that's how we're creating something higher and better than what either of us were individually. And we're creating a we, a partnership, a powerhouse that can only work in synergized teamwork, with each of us contributing in interesting and powerful ways that creates a dynamic of a partnership that is more and bigger and more vast than the collection of the individuals in the partnership. Whether that's husband and wife, whether that's a larger family, no matter what kind of group you're talking about, there ought to be a synergy in the group. And then the as long as we both shall live. This is a lifelong deal. And then here gets to be the controversial part. So what if you get divorced? What if both of you are doing your best to keep the deal, but for reasons totally beyond your control, you end up divorced? Let's just go that far. Could you keep this deal, even divorced? Could you continue to love, honor, and cherish? Now, if you're divorced, there probably won't be any having. I recommend no having. Minimal holding, because you'll be relegated back to a friend level. So no more holding that would be suitable as between friends. But still wanting your ex's life to be better, still wanting your ex to be enriched, still wanting your ex to be healthy, wanting to keep that relationship in its proper place, still having our ways, and some of those are multiply critical when you have children, you're still co-parenting together. That you have to keep that partnership together in its proper place, that, you know, we're still the mom and the dad here. We have to partner at least as far as mom and dad. We want to try to minimize a conflict between mom house rules and dad house rules and create a healthy synergy there if we can. And so some of these deals, especially when you have the responsibilities for things like children, it becomes more important to how well can you keep this deal even divorced. And if you can't trust that the deal is keepable at the level at which it would be healthy and appropriate, together or apart, you need to weigh that going in. Because I personally haven't known, well, some, very many couples on the way to the altar that had an intention for this to lead to a divorce. Almost every single person I've ever worked with, where it ended in divorce, that was not the plan. That is not where they were aiming. That's where they ended up. And as long as we both shall live means I am pledging this deal even if. Whatever is the healthy, reasonable application of it, even if. And can I keep that deal? Keeping the deal is faithfulness. The deal, as expressed in these vows, love, honor, cherish, obey, have, hold, better or worse, richer or poor, sickness and health, forsaking, cleaving, and for life. When you keep that deal, you are being faithful to these vows. So when I am loving you, honoring you, cherishing you, and since I'm talking as a man, when I am leading in such a way that obedience to me is healthy and safe for you and gives you rest. When there's having and holding, when I'm seeking the better, the richer, the healthy, and when things come crashing against us from the outside, I partner with you. Through the better and worse, through the richer and poor, through the sickness and health. When I keep our primary relationship as the primary relationship, I don't put my mom above you, I don't put my dad above you, I don't put my boss above you, you are primary. I create an our way. We collaborate, we synergize. When I keep that deal, I am being faithful to the vows. Well, of course, the converse is true. Breaking the deal is unfaithfulness. For decades of coaching and counseling, I hear breaking the vows as a euphemism for either an affair or a divorce. But the vows are not, don't have sex with anyone else and don't get divorced. The list is longer than that. In fact, you will note nowhere in this list is don't ever get divorced, one of the vows. Now, some people like the as long as we both shall live, until death do we part, being that vow. They're a promise to never get divorced. But that's not the only vow. The list is longer than that. The list includes love, honor, cherish, obey, have, hold, better or worse, richer, poor, sickness and health, forsaking, cleaving, and for life. That means if I am unloving to you, I'm breaking the vows. If I am dishonoring of you, I'm breaking the vows. If I fail to cherish you, I'm breaking the vows. As a leader, if I lead in such a way that your obedience to my leadership is neither wise nor healthy, I'm breaking that vow. And if you're the one who pledged to obey, and you're facing wise leadership, responsible leadership, loving leadership, the kind of leadership where if you just went with it, you would have rest and everything would be fine, and you refuse to obey it anyway, you're breaking the vows. If the having or the holding has gone away. You're breaking the vows. If the having or holding has ceased to be mutual, you're breaking the vows. If in the better or worse, richer or poorer, sickness or in health, you break partnership and treat each other like an opponent, you're breaking the vows. If you fail to keep your primary relationship primary, even for something as important as children, and you're not guarding your partnership, so the partnership could raise the children. When you start putting other people, you put the other person as more important, not because the person abandoned their spot, because there's a whole thing there. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're treating you the way they're supposed to be treating you. They're walking in all of the responsibilities of a primary relationship as a primary partner. They are consistently a partner, and they're loving, honoring, and cherishing, and they're doing the part that they can do at a reasonably responsible human performance level, which, of course, human performance means not perfect, guaranteed lack of perfection, but they're doing really, really well. And they never take it out at you. They may take it out with you, like, I'm really frustrated at my boss, but I won't take it out at you where now I treat you badly because I'm upset with somebody else. When you have a partner who's doing those and doing those well and doing those at a reasonably proficient human level, and you still don't behave like they're the primary relationship, you abandon that post, well, now you're breaking the vow. You're creating an opening that now someone else is going to need to fill. And you don't know who's going to fill it and under what circumstances. What I see very, very often is the parents fill that. Now you might think like, well, that leads to an affair. Well, we see that too. But a lot of times I see then the parents become primary. Where people start going to mom or dad, or they go to a best friend, or someone else becomes their primary relationship. Someone else becomes their key oasis, because their primary relationship has ceased to be safe for them, where they can't be open. They can't really share. And unfortunately, I talked to a woman recently I was counseling, and we were talking about the idea of armoring up and like the oasis being able to drop your armor. He says, I can't do that at home. In fact, you'll probably say I have a special suit of armor I have to put on every time I walk in that house, because my husband is not emotionally safe for me. He's not intellectually safe for me. I can't share my thoughts with him because he's going to come at me. I can't share my heart with him because he's going to come at me. And he doesn't think anything of it. He just thinks, well, it's normal. You should just put up with it. Be happy with it. Everybody behaves this way. And she said, I have a special suit of armor I have to wear just to deal with my husband. He is not safe for me. Now, she does her best to fulfill her roles as primary relationship still. She does her best to run the vows. Now, she says, yeah, it's been like that for a while. And I can't seem to talk to him about it, because every time I try to talk to him about it, he gets defensive and he counterattacks. So all of this reminds us then, the deal is the deal until it isn't. But this should be the deal, at least when we start. We start off with love, honor, cherish. We start off with obey, have, hold, better or worse, richer or poor, sickness and health. We start off with forsake, cleave, and for life. But over the course of time, from time to time, you will notice the deal will change. So the deal's a deal until it isn't. Sometimes it's not that an element has disappeared, it's that it changes. And the way the deal gets expressed becomes different. The deal can evolve. Whether the terms of the deal change or not, how the deal is expressed will evolve. How the deal is expressed on the wedding day and the honeymoon is probably not going to be the same as how the deal will be expressed when you get home and now it's time to live the day-to-day living. How the deal gets expressed when there's a baby on the way, and when there's a baby born and you got a couple of years of dealing with the baby. The way the deal gets expressed will hopefully be different. Hopefully in some great ways and possibly in some not so great ways. That should be rectified systematically over time after that baby's about 2. But the deal can evolve most obviously when a child's on the way. But even without a child, common and natural changes as we get older will also create shifts in the deal. So the deal might be expressed one way when both of us are working full-time jobs. The deal might get expressed differently if only one of us is working a full-time job and the other is working part-time. The deal might get expressed differently or reverse if who's working flips. So I might be accustomed, say, to be the breadwinner and I'm putting in 60 to 80 hours a week working to make the money. If I'm working 80-hour work weeks because I'm new at a law firm and these are the kind of hours I have to put in, chances are high I will have very little or possibly even none of the housework I'm responsible for if my wife is a stay-at-home housewife. She'll probably handle all of that. But if somewhere along the line that flips, that I lose my job at the firm, that they downsize and I was one of the last 3 people hired and they're dropping 5 of us and so I'm gone. Now I'm at home full-time, hunting for a job, but I'm not at work. And say in that same period of time that she gets a job and now she's working full-time. Well, guess what? All that should flip. She should not have to go work full-time, come home, and still have to take care of the household responsibilities. Now I'm the house husband. I'm the stay-at-home house husband. And I should assume all the responsibilities that she assumed as the stay-at-home spouse. And if we have children, I should assume the parenting responsibilities that she assumed when she was a stay-at-home spouse. And so when things flip, things have to flip. So the deal can evolve. As things change, and you change with the things, then the deal will shift and evolve as pieces shift and evolve. And if it doesn't, if it's non-responsive to reality, in which way is it non-responsive? Because here's the thing I have to watch out for personally the most, is when the deal does or does not respond to shifts in reality, is it consistently doing it in a selfish, self-serving way to me? If it is, I need to go back and revisit the deal that I offer and make sure I'm doing the love, honor, cherish. Make sure I'm doing the have, hold. Make sure that I'm worthy of the obey. Make sure that I'm handling partnership through better or worse, through richer or poorer, through sickness and health. Make sure that I'm keeping the primary relationship primary. Make sure that I'm still doing the cleave. And then likewise, if reality is shifting, but the deal's not shifting with it in a healthy way, and it's selfishly self-serving to my partner, how do I have that conversation? And by the way, here gets to be one of the challenges. If it is not emotionally or intellectually safe to have that conversation, I might need to look at the same relationship at a different level. Just like if it's not safe for someone to talk to me, I may need to look at how I'm showing up at a different level. So the deal can evolve. It's helpful to be able to have concrete discussions about this. But your relationship must have adequate emotional safety to do so. And that's built through partnership. Now the deal could just be off with a new deal that doesn't just shift or evolve or kind of respond to shifting realities because it's an organic thing, because it's a relationship. It's like a person. Just like I shift and adapt to shifting realities, you shift and adapt to shifting realities. As the two become one flesh, we've got this partnership, which is a separate thing from either one of us. It involves both of us, but it's not just either one of us. It's a thing unto itself. That will evolve, a shift. But sometimes the deal's just off. And if we're going to do something, we need a whole new deal. Now, sometimes when some people realize, okay, this having a kid thing totally isn't working the way I thought it was going to work. It didn't come down the way I thought it was going to come down. And what I was agreeing to deal-wise just absolutely is not working. Basically, the deal's off. We need to do this again. So whether the deal evolves or is broken, it's possible the previously existing deal just might be off. It's gone. It's done. We can't keep that deal anymore. Substantial terms in that deal cannot be kept the way we had been doing it. An option is to forge a new deal to replace the old deal. You don't have to end the relationship. You just end the deal and you make a new deal that is more suitable to where things are now. Very often you'll get this if the deal never really evolved, even though reality was shifting, because the deal wasn't being responsive to shifts in reality, and it kind of should have been, and you're somewhere way behind the curve. Okay, sometimes the deal, the way it was being done 2 years ago, 5 years ago, just it's not healthy. And you just need to cut it out. And you need to cancel that deal and let's make a new deal from here. Make a new deal to replace the old deal. Now, it might be substantially similar. It might still include love, honor, cherish. Might still include obey. Might still include leadership. Might still include having and holding. All of the core elements might be there in categories, but the way you're going to express those might just radically change. Where the deal as it was set up was totally functional for the situation you were in 5 years ago. It's not functional anymore. Now it's unhealthy. So even though it might be substantially similar with only minor adjustment, it also might be completely different. Basically starting over from here. I am who I am now. You are who you are now. We live where we live now. We have the jobs we have now. We have the money we have now. We have the children we have now. And let's work out a deal that can be as mutually fulfilling as possible from right here. The deal can be off and no deal. That is entirely possible too. So if a new deal cannot be found that's enough of a win-win, the result may be no deal. Now here gets to be some of the cool parts of all of this. When you're looking at what the vows are, if you know the deal I'm going to offer, and I'm going to use myself as a concrete example. If I know at some point I would like to stand at an altar with a woman, and that I intend to pledge to love her. So in the agape phileo eros, what can I be practicing right now? If I promise to lead in a way that I am worthy of her healthy obedience. Okay, well, where can I practice leadership where I ought to just be obeyed? And where obeying me is healthy and good. And then also, how can I model the obedience I want by being able to show her, let her see me under authority so that she can see how I behave when someone else is the boss of me. And see how I behave when I disagree with authority. Because sometimes she's going to disagree with me. How do I know? Because if I'm marrying an intelligent, independent, capable human being, sometimes she's going to disagree with me. And if I can model how I respond emotionally, how I respond intellectually, how I do or don't grumble behind my leader's back, all of that stuff, if I can model that, where can I practice that? So I can see both sides of the equation, and I can demonstrate and practice both sides of the equation. The having and the holding, there might be some moral and ethical limitations to where you can do that, but within the appropriate boundaries and context of the relationship, where can I practice that? At what level can I practice that? You know, some of it, even when it comes to like the holding, snuggling, cuddling, can I even practice that with an animal? Can I snuggle with my dog or my cat or something to just get in the snuggling habit? And can I put some of these things into practice in a way that will lead to a healthy relationship? And on the having thing, it's getting more and more common with women, but it's always been an issue with men. Like, if I want to have a healthy having relationship with my wife, might I probably benefit from eliminating, or just flat out staying away from things like pornography that might put some unhealthy ideas in my head that become selfishly self-serving, that have a chance to then show up in a marriage intimacy situation where I have created very selfish habits that don't involve pleasing or pleasuring her in any meaningful way. I could be practicing and developing, pre-developing healthy having habits even if I don't have a lover. How can I practice the better or worse, richer, poorer, sickness, and health? I practice partnership. Where can I practice partnership? Especially practice partnership where an unhealthy response might naturally lead to behaving like an opponent, and practice behaving like a partner anyway. So that when I'm married and situations come up where it might be a very common response to behave in an opponent way, that I have a history of practicing partnership. Where can I show up and practice keeping relationships in their proper place? Doing relationship in its proper place and accepting relationship in its proper place. Like, I'm a martial arts instructor. Where do I have authority? I have authority in the martial arts school and over martial arts matters. Do I have authority over your marriage? Do I have authority over your dating life? I was in the dojo one time where the parents came to the martial arts instructor and they asked the martial arts instructor to basically tell their daughter she can't see this boy. He's the martial arts instructor. He doesn't have the authority to tell her who she can and can't see. That's not within his purview. Is that his proper place? That's not his proper place. His authority is where his authority is. His authority is not where his authority is not. And so part of this has to do, it even relates to that whole leadership obedience thing. Do I exercise the proper relationship here? When I'm supposed to teach, do I teach? When I'm supposed to learn, do I learn? When I'm supposed to decide, do I decide? When I'm supposed to just obey, do I obey? Do I keep the relationship where I'm supposed to keep the relationship? Do I relate with my mother the way a healthy son should relate to a healthy mother? Do I relate to a friend the way a healthy friend should relate to a healthy friend in a healthy friendship? Do I treat my boss like my boss has authority in the workplace? Or do I overextend it? Or do I give people too much power? All of that is practicing the forsaking skills. And the cleaving, the my way, your way, our way, that's every relationship we have. If I'm looking at all of my partnerships, all of my connections, all of the ways I do things, how well do I allow another person to be who they are? And how well do I kind of seek the synergy? And then for life, how well do I keep up with the deals that I offer for as long as it's healthy and appropriate? And so that's practicing the deal. So if we know the deal, we can practice the deal. And if my lady knows the deal, she can practice the deal. And I can see, how has that played out in your life so far? One of the big ways I look at these days especially is, how do people handle political issues? Because that's a good way to see when someone has a us versus them. Because sometimes I'm going to be the them. And I see how they behave when it's an us and them, and how they look at an us and them, so I can have a reasonable cause to say, okay, what principles and philosophy is operating in their heart and mind that in time will break against me? Because sooner or later, I'm going to be the them on some issue at some time. And deep understanding empowers deep practice. When you really know what you want the deal to be. You really know what you want to offer at a deep level. The depth of that understanding gives you the ability to practice at a deep level. And I mentioned this actually in a different conversation just earlier this week. Something some people got to see, that is a story I get to talk about, is I had some of my rules broken big time. Oh, I was furious. And I had 3 main points, and one of the main points wasn't very nice. That one of my things, you may notice that when I'm teaching, I don't use swear words. That's very common among teachers, is that we talk clean when we're in public, and we use clean language in most business situations, professional settings. I'm like that in private too. That naughty words just aren't part of my normal vocabulary. And if you hear me say a bad word, it usually means I'm quoting something. I'm reflecting back the exact words someone said because the exact words are relevant to what was being said. For me to utter swear words out of anger, okay, that's kind of scary. There's a magnitude of ticked off that I have to pass before you're going to hear me actually say bad words. And I had 3 of them in one sentence. But then here was the key. What I did, what I modeled, the story created in that moment was, I will get ticked off when my rules get broken big time. And I will contain that anger in the issue, not at the person. So now, knowing I have that history, that I have practiced that, and I have that moment where I was that angry. And yet, the anger was still contained in the issue. I wasn't mad at the people. I was mad about the issue. Then if we resolve the issue, we're done. We're good. And that I don't get mad at the people when the people claim the behavior, when they're declaring to me, yeah, expect more of that. I'm totally okay with that. And some of the way they express, I'm totally okay with that, is they make excuses. They blame someone else for that behavior. And so on and so forth. When stuff like that happens, they're telling me, yeah, expect that from me. Build your relationship with me with the expectation that you're going to get more of that from me. Well, then my anger will extend to the person, and I will adjust the relationship accordingly. But so long as I look at it, I'm pretty sure this is just an issue that we can resolve. I might be ticked off, but it'll be contained in the issue. So now imagine you've been dating me for a while, and you've seen me do this. Could you reasonably expect that if I get ticked off with you because of something that really broke my rules, crossed my boundaries, violated my standards, that my anger will be issue-based, not personal? And that the easy way to keep it from being directed at you is just don't claim the behavior as an expectation I'm going to have to adjust to. And then we'll just resolve the issue. And I won't take it out on you. I'll still be loving toward you. It's not about you, it's about this issue. Well, having watched me do that deep practice, having heard the story, maybe even talked to the people, maybe even she was there and she saw it happen, was going, wow, that really makes me feel safe, that he could be that angry at me because I did something stupid. I did something that really broke his rules, even if in the moment it made sense to me, but that he's not going to be mad at me. He's not going to take it out on me. He's going to continue to partner with me and see the bad guy is the problem, and he wants to recruit me to be a hero side by side with him to defeat the problem. And he's going to give me that chance. Wow. Would that make you feel safe, having a relationship with me, knowing that you will have that opportunity even if something happens that deeply breaks my rules? That should make me really safe to have a relationship with. Because pretty much no matter how angry I get, it'll be issue connect. It won't be personal, it'll be the issue. The problem will be the problem. I won't make the person the problem, I'll make the problem the problem. The person only becomes the problem if the person claims the problem as their identity. And then it's up to you. If you want me to be mad at you as an individual, then you know how to do it. But yet you blame, you make excuses, you justify, you rationalize, or much more dramatic, you say, well, that's just who I am. It's like, okay, well, then that's who you are. I'll adjust accordingly. But knowing you have that opportunity, how great is that? So if we know the deal, we can practice the skills of the deal everywhere. we can practice some version of love everywhere any version of love applies. We can practice some version of honor anywhere some version of honor applies. And on down the list. It's where we get to like having and holding, that, okay, well, there's versions of that. What would be a version of that I could practice the habit at the principle level? So I could practice the thinking, I could practice the philosophy, that I could make as my normal the behaviors that keep the deal. Because if I'm not going to keep the deal, but I want my partner to keep the deal, well, that's kind of unfair. That's kind of like going to my boss and saying, well, I know I'm not showing up for work, but I still want to get paid. Or it's like, well, I know I kept most of the deal. I know I wasn't here on Monday, but I was here Tuesday through Friday. Can't I just get paid for all of it? Can't you keep the whole deal even though I only kept 80% of the deal? Well, that's not going to be fair. That's probably not going to fly. Just like if I'm the boss, I say, well, I know you worked 40 hours. But I'm going to pay you half your paycheck. Well, you should be happy I didn't give you half. But if they kept the deal, they should get the deal. And if I'm breaking the deal, if I'm paying you half, should I expect you to work whole? Or should I expect you to come in and say, okay, if you're only going to pay me for 20 hours, I'm only going to work for 20 hours. If you're only going to pay me for half a full-time job, I'm only going to work half a full-time job. I'm not going to work 40 hours for 20 hours of pay unless we work out a deal about that. So we have to know the deal so we can practice the deal. And we have to know the deal so we can practice the deal so we can keep the deal, so I can offer the deal that I want reflected back to me. Because I want a reciprocal deal. If I want you to keep the deal, I need the practice of I'm keeping the deal. And if I make it a habit of willfully breaking the deal, giving myself permission to keep breaking some aspect of the deal, I shouldn't reasonably expect you to keep the whole deal to me if I'm only keeping part of the deal to you. So I want to practice the deal. And the deeper my understanding of the deal, and the deeper my understanding of myself, and the more I can dive into my own heart and do self-development and grow as a person, grow, in my case, as a man to a husband, to a father, and just keep expanding this identity, the deep understanding empowers deep practice. But both of these begin with, do you even know the deal at all? And are you a deal keeper? And then, how deeply do you understand the deal? And what can you put into practice? Because I want a healthy deal-to-deal relationship. I don't want it to be unhealthy. I don't want to be partnered with an unhealthy person doing unhealthy stuff that's toxic to me. And of course, that means, therefore, if I love you, I don't want you partnered with an unhealthy person doing unhealthy stuff that's toxic to you. That's not loving. I'm breaking the first element if I do that. I'm already being non-loving. And then if the way I treat you gets to be known, I'm being dishonoring too, and so on and so forth. So I gotta practice the deal and put it into practice and be able to have the conversations about, well, what do we mean by this deal? And for the next half dozen lessons, we're going to dive in to the deal. We're going to dive in and we're going to talk in much more detail than this quick introduction about love, honor, and cherish, about obey, have and hold, better or worse, richer or poorer, sickness and health. We're going to talk more deeply about forsaking, cleaving, and for life. So keep coming back to the lessons, and for those who started at lesson number 2 for the overview, back up and pick up lesson number 1, and then you can skip to lesson number 3. And for those of us that are continuing 1 through on to the end, of course, just continue on with lesson number 3. So this is Scott Conway, PhD, JD. Thank you very much for diving into this with me, because I'm grateful for everybody who learns this, because I love to see these kind of partnerships. Thank you for being part of this adventure.